Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost, and this is the Friday TRU Community Gathering. TRU is Theater Resources Unlimited. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're an arts organization that's been around for about 34 years, 33, 34 years. And we basically help theater professionals understand and navigate the business of theater. But we also do a lot more than that. We do programs that develop new works and all sorts of stuff. This is a particularly surprising program for me. This community gathering that we do every week. I created it back in 2020 as a response to COVID and shutdown, and I opened up a Zoom room because all of us were like, not we just didn't know what to do with ourselves. It was crazy being in quarantine, and to my delight and surprise, every Friday I have like 30 or more people who come into the room every single Friday. And this is like 285th. I forgot to count, but it's like 285th or the 286th consecutive week that I've done. I interview people every week. If you're new to us and just finding us, I hope you'll come back and find some of the topics interesting and you'll join us. So we're back in what's supposedly it's a post-COVID normal world, and we're back in live performance, and pretty much we're talking about things that are more general. They're not specific to being alone and being alone and miserable in your apartment. And this is a topic tonight that I've wanted to touch on, and it's very delicate. It's a very sensitive conversation. I've been wanting to talk about this because I know a lot of people, a lot of writers who want to write about things other than their own backgrounds and their own lives. And there has been, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, or I don't think it's even that hard to realize it. There's been a backlash against pieces that are not written by the ethnicities that they're about, people that are crossing cultural boundaries, which is what we're talking about today. I didn't feel that I could even address this, and then all of a sudden I'm on a Zoom with a lady named Lynnie Godfrey, and suddenly she's talking about the frustration that she has with writers, white writers who can't write about black characters, and black writers who can't write about white characters, and I'm like going, whoa, can we talk about that on this Zoom thing that I do? And of course she said yes, because that's who she is. She says yes. I want you to meet Lynnie in a second. I'm going to introduce Lynnie, and then I'm going to bring on the two writers that she works with. But because this sprang from a conversation I had with her, I want to have her start off and talk about, first of all, who she is and what she does. I mean, I'll give you a little hint. She does a lot. And some of it is involved with the League of Professional Theater Women. She's the president of the league right now. But let me bring her on. And Lynnie, I'm going to have you take the spotlight, and you're going to tell us a little bit or a lot about yourself. We'll see how much you do. Here you go. There you are.
All righty.
She's taking a deep breath for me because I've just been racing.
Well, thank you. You've been, I admire you. I do a podcast, so I also know that it requires you to speak a long time. And I usually have a glass of water, so I don't see any water next to you, but I'd be down to about a half a glass by now if I had spoken as long as you had.
Yeah,
Um,
I really do need that water, and I forgot. I usually have it, and I don't have it today.
aha. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Lynnie Godfrey. I am what they call a hyphenated person. I studied music very early on. I've been singing since I was 3. And then I studied at Carnegie from the time that I was 9 until my teacher, who was Chauncey Northern Sr. at Carnegie, passed at 90. And I was on Broadway by that time. I went through many changes, vocal changes. I've also studied classical music, arias, as well as I think now I am a person who, as Ethel Waters says, I'm a person who recites musically the American Songbook.
Ah,
And I really do enjoy that kind of music, but I am a disciplinarian in music, and I think that if you have studied the classics, that you can probably sing anything. And then I studied acting with Lloyd Richards at Hunter College, and I was discovered as like with by Marjorie Moon, who is at Booklet. She was artistic director of Billie Holiday Theater. Then at the same time with studying acting with Lloyd, I started studying directing. And that's kind of why I'm sitting here. And you see this logo behind me, which is almost what you can see is Essence of Acting. And it's Essence of Acting Inc., which is my company of actors, about 11 to 15 professional actors, multicultural, but mostly Black Americans and foundational Black Americans. Um, and we explore plays that have not been done, new plays, some classics. That's how I know these two ladies. They have both come across my path. Celeste and I have known each other now for more than 10 years. Ellen and I are new and belong to a lot of organizations together, but both of them are playwrights and their plays interested me. I think Ellen's story is going to be very interesting to you, as well as Celeste, and how we created our relationship, that it took a while.
Well, let's specify some of this. So, what you've done is you basically have offered yourself as a consultant, and I'm going to call it an authenticity consultant, and you've supported people in these writers in writing pieces that they felt might be crossing lines. Is that correct or no?
It's close. What it is that when I read a play, I don't know who wrote the play, basically. But if I have an interest in the play and I have the way that I read it, and if it if it passes that reading test, I bring I created a conversation with the playwright, and if they have an interest in having my group of actors explore their play, it is a reciprocal kind of exercise because they get a chance to see the play directed by someone whose priority is for the playwright.
I just want this brings up also a very important topic, which is I believe, and I think you believe, but not everybody does, that part of a director's job is always inevitably going to involve some dramaturgy. So
absolutely,
um,
absolutely.
There's some directors who think that's a separate job, and
and for some directors it should be,
yeah,
because
right.
they don't have that ability. But some directors have that ability, and I've been told that I do. I mean, sometimes you'd have to ask people. Like kids say, you better ask somebody. Ask somebody. But if you have the vision and you see a play that has potential and you want to try to bring it to completion, one of the hardest things for me is a reading, because in a reading you have no accoutrement. It's you and the words,
Yes,
and it's the playwright and the director and your actors, and that's it. You're sitting around a table. I do the equity version of reading, so it's different from some other people because a lot of people have a lot of different interpretations of reading.
We can talk about that on another show, because I want to.
Yeah, well,
I'm gonna
yes,
bring.
but the reason why I bring it up is because it's important to, when I say it has no accoutrements, I want people to understand that exists in a lot of readings per se. So,
Well, it also lays bare the play itself, the words themselves, which is what a lot of what we're going to be talking about is.
For me, and everyone I hope that you speak to who is in the position of directing something has their own interpretation. We're all very different. For me, it starts as the Bible. Now, it may not remain totally the Bible, because they're there possibly sometimes to enhance it, to bring out some kind of feelings about it. At this point, what we're doing with these two women and their two plays, they presented scenes that they want to hear to see if these scenes are working.
Okay, well,
And so that
I'm gonna bring Ellen on because I'm gonna add her to the spotlight. So she's gonna be on with you right now. Ellen, I want to just give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you've done. I have a bio up on our website about it, but tell us how you met. Tell us how you met Lynnie.
I met Lenny because I know what it was. I saw a Zoom reading that I thought was wonderful, and I found out that it was done by the League of Professional Theater Women. And so I said, I want to join that organization. And so I did. And then the league has various roundtables, or I guess you'd call it that. And one of them was a producers roundtable. I am not a producer, but for some reason I thought I'm going to go to that meeting. So I went to that meeting, and it was exactly about this because I had started to write a play which wound up in a Black community. It never started that way. And here I was, and I thought, uh-oh, I am really in a strange place here. Um, so I just looked at these women and I said, I have a problem. I'm writing about Black culture, and I don't. I'm having well. First of all, I was wanting to have a reading. I had trouble finding a Black actor, and I don't really know what I'm doing. And Lynnie was there. And she answered. I can't tell you what she said at that time, but I can tell you a lot of what she said after that. So that's
So,
how we met, and that was a couple of years ago, I guess. And I've just been so impressed by her in many ways, many ways. So
so I'm going to bring on Celeste now. So Celeste, tell us a little bit about yourself and also about how you know Lynnie.
Well, my name is Celeste Bedford Walker. I am a Houston-based playwright. I've written over 40 plays. I've been in the business over 40 years. I do have a book out now, an anthology out now, five of my plays called Sassy Mamas and other plays by Celeste Bedford Walker. And I met Lenny. Oh, let me say this. I do have a play, Black Spurs, that is up for an Odelco Award here in New York on
Congratulations.
November. Thank you. November the 17th. So I just want to put that plug in for them. And let's see, I met Lenny about 10 years ago. We were working on my play Greenwood, An American Dream Destroyed, about
mm,
the event that happened in Tulsa in 1921. She was the director and also actor, one of the main characters in the reading. And so we've just, I've just been, what playwrights say is once we get a hold of a good director who gets us, they can never get away. So, I have my grip on it, and just every time I have a new play, I'm just so happy that her group, Essence of Acting, will you know will consent to read it for me. So I have a work now that is called, well, the title changes, but right now the title is Heirs Property. And we're having readings with it in conjunction with Ellen having her readings.
So I'm
So,
going to just go right to the heart of this. The what we're walking dancing around right now is the concept of cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is a big buzzword. It has been big and very visible in our culture for I don't know how many. Well, probably for the entire since America was founded, actually. But I, what I want to talk about is granted there are things about cultural appropriation that are unacceptable. Um, when is it possible for me to write about a black character without being accused of being cultural appropriation? When is it okay for Joel to write about South Asian culture without being accused? Um, my belief, and I think yours too, because we've talked about this, Lynnie, is that artists are artists, and it is not our job to write about just ourselves. And it's our job to observe the world and to write about the world around us. Or at least that's one of our jobs. Anybody want to actually have something else to add to that or disagree with that?
Well, let me just say this. I think it's important for us to understand why there's a great deal of sensitivity about it. And that was because, like a lot of things, in the very beginning, when people who were not Black, and I'm going to be very specific because I'm a foundational Black person, and so I can relate to who I am and speak about my background. When people were not Black American and they started writing about Blacks, sometimes there were great inaccuracies. And Black people got tired of it and they rebelled from it. So the reaction that you have is that people are sensitive about it because they have to be, they are defending their culture and the proper representation that they want people to have of themselves. When there is only one representation, that's not fair. So it stems from that issue. Now we grow a little bit more and people becoming aware. And so one of the ingredients that I think that people make people more comfortable is evidence that people have done the research, really the research. And they've done the research and they've consulted with people who are in that culture. So they don't do it by themselves because you can read about somebody, but you still don't know that. You still need to go. I still have stereotypes about people who are Asian that, that are disproved constantly. And I do research. So when that happens in conjunction with all of the things that you do, then you can get a comfort zone. But you have to understand that it was based and truly based on all the stereotypes that we just dislike today and that are still being used today by everybody.
So I'm gonna suggest one thing. There are many points that we can discuss in this conversation. You had said earlier that when you read plays, you don't always know what the cultural background is of the person that's writing it. So I think what we're coming to is one of the things we want to really be careful about is authenticity. We want to make sure that the voice is authentic. The thing that happens is though when you're reading a script and you don't know the ethnicity of the person that's writing it, that's one thing. But when you're a white writer who's written a play about Frederick Douglass and somebody wants to option it, you're visible. They go, okay, why did you write this? Why are you the person to write this? Mm-hmm. And then it basically it's out there. It's out there mm-hmm. at that point that you're a white writing about a Black, mm-hmm. and it works the same way, I guess. That's a question. This is a question to you, Celeste. Are you comfortable writing characters who are of a culture that's different than yours? Are you comfortable writing white characters, for instance, or Asian characters?
Well, I don't think I'd be comfortable writing, I'll be honest, an Asian character. Right. I don't know why I think I am more comfortable writing a white character. And maybe it's because of the history of this country. We, as Blacks, have had to know all that we can possibly know about whites in order to survive. And then, of course, we don't really know, anything, but we just feel more comfortable around each other. And that's probably why whites feel comfortable wanting to write Black stories, because they've heard these stories all their lives, some of them, and the stories are interesting and they want to write the stories. I'd like to add to what Lynnie has said, everything that she said, ditto, about the representation and some of the insensitivity sometimes and the inauthenticity sometimes. I think a story chooses its author. I really do. Most of the time, Black stories choose Black authors. Sometimes Black stories choose white authors. I have a friend who wrote a story about a best-selling book about a black soldier, black female soldier. And she's white. She waited 50 years to write that story. And she was so impressed by it and she wanted to write it. And she kept thinking a black writer was going to step forth and write that story. And I knew the story she was talking about because I had read about that character too and had thought, oh, this would be interesting to write. But I never did it or got into it, or any of the other black writers out there never ever got into it. So she waited 50 years, but the story grabbed her, had a hold on her. She had to write the story. And I think sometimes uh, a story grabs you, and if you don't write it, it won't get written. Of course, you have to be sensitive, when it's, across ethnicities, you have to be sensitive. You have to be, try to be as authentic as you can be. But I think that you have to write that story.
I'm going to move to Ellen about just that. What is the story that moved you to write it? And were you
Oh,
comfortable?
I mean, it's unbelievable what moved me to write it because it went so far from it. Uh, I was looking at Donald Trump 4 years ago, more than that, and I thought, where is the human being there? I want to write that story. I want to find where the empathetic human being is. Well, I didn't get too far with that.
I'm going to stop you with that because human beings are not all empathetic, and that's a great example of one who isn't.
I
However,
know.
however, it does address the whole concept that playwrights are often taught, which is you can't write a villain as a villain. In order to effectively write a villain, you have to understand why they're motivated to do what they're doing. So,
Well, interestingly, it took a turn very quickly. And before I knew it, I found my story down in Georgia. Why? Because I have a friend in Atlanta, which has nothing to do with where I wound up. It wound up in the Gullah Geechee corridor. And I knew nothing about the Gullah Geechee culture. And I started learning about it. And I must say, by the way, that it is, if you can't meet people because I'm not there, I found things online. I listened to interviews from the Congressional Library that were done maybe in the 20s or the 30s, and I was so moved by them, by a man who lost his property, which is a common thing, heirs property, uh, land rights just completely taken away. And I heard a voice that I had never heard before. I mean, I know people, I live in the North. This was a different voice. This was a voice, an authentic voice. And I just stopped in my tracks and I listened to his story. And this is a man who went to prison rather than give up his land. And I thought, I have to get into this. I have to see, I have to write about this. Then I went to a panel having nothing to do with that, and there was a Black woman there on the panel. These were producers. I told her my story. I'm writing about this. She says, "Oh," she said, "the Gullah Geechee, that's an old one. That's an old culture." She said, "You need a guide. You need a guide." Okay, a guide. So these are things that became very helpful. It was as if my subconscious was leading me to these people who could tell me what I needed to do. Listening to that man in his interview, it's an audio, there's no video then. Um, that was deeply moving. Hearing her tell me I need a guide. And then one thing it started to, and then Lynnie has become my guide. Not that she's from that culture, but she understands things that I didn't. Um, she came to a reading of mine and of this play, and she's as honest as can be, as you know.
oh, I do know.
And okay. And you invite somebody and you think, okay, she's going to say something nice and we're going to be done. Okay, now we're going to be finished, go home. Okay. So she says, now Ellen knows I love her. And I'm thinking, what are you going to do? You just say something nice. So I'm thinking, what is she going to say? So she said, I am tired of white people saving Black people. So I said, but Lynnie, I said, and we're in this group, it's on Zoom, but there are people there, they don't know her, and the play is new and so on. I said, but Lynnie, this man had nothing, nothing. He may have had some money, but he had nothing. These people in this Gullah Geechee, they had a community. They had everything. So for him to want to give whatever he has, his money, to create corporations to help people. And she said, and that story has been told 1,000 times. And I thought, okay, okay, be quiet and listen, okay? Because she knows something. She knows a lot. And so it went beyond that. It went beyond that. And doors started opening in my mind. And it became, I couldn't put it down. I couldn't walk away from this character that I had created and these characters, which are so completely antithetical from where I told you I started.
Well, Lenny, let's move to you and your perspective on this journey that Ellen went through. What did it
Mhm.
look like from your side? We heard it from Ellen's side.
Well, it's very similar. Ellen said to me, "Lynnie, I have a play, and I want you to read my play." And I said, "Oh, of course. I love to read it. I'd love to read the play." And I read the play, and I was very excited. I don't know if you remember this moment. And I said, "Ellen, this is really wonderful." And she said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "And that you've written a black man like this?" And she said, "He's not black." I said, "Oh, he's black." She said, "No, no, no, I didn't write him to be black." I said, "It doesn't matter if you wrote him to be black. You wrote a black character because what she was thinking that this man was so charitable that he was going to give these poor black people all these things, and we've been saved by white people all this time." And I said, "No, no." I said, "He has a reason why he has to do this. And it has nothing to do with him being charitable." Now, I'm not telling you any more about this because that's the clicker in her play. But we had a discussion, and I said, "Oh, you know why?
So,
You know,
Ellen, would it be fair to say that the play completely changed when, or something about the play changed through conversation with Lenny? Um,
Oh, yes. Oh,
what,
yes. I mean,
but let me also
totally.
ask you a very sensitive question because a lot of
Mhm.
times, a lot of I'm a writer, but I don't know if you know this. I'm a playwright, composer, lyricist, um, and I am
yes,
very aware
yes,
of the.
Bob, I do know this.
Well, you
Yes."
know that, but not everybody does. I'm very conscious of what was I going to say? Okay, just you got it right out of my head. Um, oh boy. All right. Well, we'll move on. We'll move on. Um, so I brought this to a standstill. I'm so sorry.
No,
So let's get back on track. My concern about this is that we where do you draw the line in terms of what we're allowed to write and what we're not allowed to write? We're basically agreeing here that we can write anything if we do it well, if we do it right, and if we do it authentically. But the cultural appropriation thing, if you kind of extrapolate from that, it's like, does this mean that men can't write female characters, women can't write male characters? As artists and as writers, we should have some insight into the human experience and the human relations. And uh, if we feel if we feel compelled to write something, I wouldn't tell anybody not to write it. However, for like 10 years in TRU, I've been warning people who have taken on subject matter that is not within their own background, that they're going to have problems because there's going to be resistance by producers. There's going to be resistance to produce it, and I think that's still the case. So Lynnie, my question to you is: once you've agreed that there's authenticity in the voice, and once you've agreed that this play about the Black experience that was written by a white writer is worthwhile and worth being seen, how do you get past the guards, the gatekeepers that are saying no, 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 we can't do this now?
You know, this is going to sound terrible. I really don't care about the gatekeepers. I don't let I don't let that be my problem. That's their
Well, I'm
problem.
talking about the producers. I mean, getting it on stage, getting it seen.
Well, it's just like every other play. Let us not, the thing I think that happens is you make this bigger, you make this whole thing so enormous that it's like an enormous thing on your back that you can't do this. You have that problem with every single play. A play that is written by a Black person that has too many characters can't get on. A play, you have enormous challenges all the time. It's the same kind of challenge. What you do not concentrate on when you talk about this particular thing is, did you see Ellen's face when she talked about this play? Do you see the passion? Do you see the genuineness of her wanting, needing to say that? That convinces me that it is a journey that I have to take. We're in the arts because we are feeling artisans. And if that is something that you see in someone, that I see in someone, and I say, yeah, I do believe it. I do believe in you. I do believe that you have a passion. I want to direct something like Schindler's List. Do you think someone should stop me because I'm Black?
Well,
do you think that I don't know what pain is? Is it not universal? Is what we're talking about? Yes, all of this is elementary, but I'm telling you, it's on you and your interpretation of what you're saying. It's really big to you. It's not big to me. It's not big to me.
Yeah, I'm
I
lost
go
at
in,
the,
I
you
try to
lost me at
sell
the
it.
end.
If you don't want it, I'm answering your question, so let me finish.
Oh,
I go in, I try to sell it. If you don't want it, I move to the next person. I cannot wait for
so,
people to catch up.
okay, so
They gotta be where they are.
the answer is persistence, patience and persistence.
Gotta
So
be.
so that that's to people, because we already we have people in the room who have written pieces that they feel they're being judged for having written, and they feel that there's an obstacle up in their way.
Well, if you start there, if you start with there's an obstacle. If you start, maybe I must have this piece. This piece must be seen by someone. Maybe change your objective as to what you're talking about. Stop thinking about the obstacles and thinking about the reason why you had to write it. And let
Well,
nothing stop you. Be relentless about it. Let nothing stop you. If it's that good and if you are that determined, then that's why we're doing what we do.
okay, so
That's why
no,
we are in the arts.
so number one, the world that we live in is one where I know that Joel's not imagining it. I know that Karen's not imagining it. And I know that all of us who write about things that are things that we're not supposed to be writing about are not imagining it. There are obstacles that other people are putting up. But you're saying is that don't worry. It's what I say to all writers. Don't worry about who doesn't like what you wrote. Just look for places where they appreciate you and welcome you.
And I don't use the phrase that we're not supposed to write about. You write about what you write about.
Well, I'm using it
who's
as a
determined? Who
yeah.
determines you're not supposed to write about? Who can tell me I'm not supposed to do something? I was raised in a culture where my parents told me you do whatever you want to do. If that's what you want to do, then that's what you do.
One of my
That is how I live my life. Ask these ladies; they'll tell you.
Celeste, let me ask
So
you.
I don't. We see it differently. You have obstacles when you talk about that. I don't. I don't.
All right. Just all right.
Hey, you know what you were getting when you got me to come in. What you see is what you get. And I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm saying those things don't exist in my world for me. But
I
it's my
understand.
world, and it's my
There's
world, and that's how I navigate.
Whole conversation we're having before we started this in the room, where I was saying the fact that there is no such thing as reality. Basically, reality is based on what your perception is and what your beliefs are. We create our own realities, and in very real ways. If you expect obstacles, you'll find obstacles. Is what you're saying. If you expect to succeed, you have a better chance of succeeding. So
I mean, I am president of the League of Professional Theater Women. Did I join it to become president? No. Well, are there obstacles? Yes. Do I care? No.
Well,
That's it. I mean, it's that simple.
another
And
way of
you
another
elected me, I'm going to do my job.
another
If you
way of
have a problem, the
describing.
problem is not with me, it's with you.
You don't mean me personally, because I keep feeling like
No,
I'm
I'm
being
talking
like,
about a you. Oh, don't be so
okay,
sensitive. Robert, please don't be so
God,
sensitive.
you're pointing at me. It's like, oh no.
Oh, don't be sensitive.
So I'm simply trying to acknowledge the reality that some of us have.
Lighten up, lighten up. This is not hard surgery. We can do this.
We can do this.
You can do it. Lighten up. I'm just, don't make it so serious. Just pursue it. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do.
Okay. Um, Celeste, what I'm not clear about yet is I know that Lynnie suggested that you and Ellen would be two great examples of writers that she's worked with who she's supported in works that might have come against across those obstacles that don't exist. Um, have you written plays that incorporate white characters, and have you done it successfully and authentically?
No, I have not many because I mostly tell, Black stories, but I have. And when you were talking about well, can a man write female characters and can a female write male characters? Well, one of my most successful plays to date is called Camp Logan. It's the World War One military drama about a true event. And in that play, I have six Black males and one white male who's the captain. So I'm dealing with both of those issues. I'm dealing with gender and I'm dealing with race in that play. And I must say, oh, I wrote it about 30 years ago, and it's still, they just did it again this year. It's been done, over and over and over again. But when I first decided to tackle the play, the first obstacle, the first judge, the first gatekeeper was within myself. I thought, oh, this is a wonderful story. I've heard it all my life. Somebody's got to write it. It's wonderful. I mean, it's Shakespearean. The tragedy of the whole story is about a mutiny that took place in Houston with this all Black regiment who were stationed in Houston to guard a training camp preparatory to them going overseas to fight as in World War One. And I thought, well, that's a male story there. I can't write that. And I really had to argue with myself and just drag myself into it because, as I said before, the men grabbed me. The men in that story grabbed me and said, you have to write this. And I argued with them. I said, well, I can't write it. It's all male. And then we have and it's military, and then we have a white captain, and let me try to introduce a female voice into this story. Because I just kept getting the sense that it had to be an all male play. I said, well, it just can't be. Let me try to get a female character in. Maybe I can get a female reporter in to be one of the main characters, and I can talk through her. So finally, I just had to give in. In my research, I went to the cemetery where these soldiers were buried. And it's just like they just reached from the grave and just grabbed me and just told me, well, you have to tell the story. You have to tell the story. So I put aside that judgment that I had in myself, and I just went forth. Like Lynnie said, you just have to have the passion. And I just went forth and I said, well, I'm just going to do the best I can. I'm going to observe men. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to try to come out of my female psyche and write the story. And it's, as I said, it's been one of my most successful when it was first done. And the men in the audience, it was just like I was holding my breath, waiting to see how the men were going to react, what they were going to say. And the men were just totally, yeah, these are guys in the army, all right. I mean, you must be an army brat or something. How did you know? So I was very gratified and pleased by that. And then one of the characters, as I said, was a white captain. At that time, 1917, they were in a racist environment in Houston, and he was very racist. At that time, they only put Southern white officers over Black troops because they felt like, well, they know how to handle Blacks. And he was just so, I mean, because it was a true story. That's why I've done the research. He was just so racist that he seemed like a stereotype. And I had to wrestle with myself. I said, well, I can't put him forward as he really is because the audience would think he's a stereotype. But that's really how he was during that time. And so I had to tackle that. We did it. When the actors went out, they loved all the actors. They loved the white character who was afraid to come out because he said they're really going to think it's me. They said, no, we know it's not you. We appreciate your service representing how it was at that time. So that's what I have to say.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. I know that Lee, what happened? She had her hand up. Lee Roscoe, did you want to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with this kind of cross-cultural, and I've written a couple of characters. One was mixed race, one was indigenous. And based on what I know, because these are people I know and know well. And so I checked with the characters themselves to make sure that what I was writing was on the money, and also the actors. And it's kind of like what Lynnie and Celeste and Ellen are saying. When they vetted what I was doing and said, yeah, that's right, then I felt comfortable going ahead with respect. And everything was fine, and I got no blowback. However, I did a very well-received book on Wampanoag art, our indigenous tribe on Cape Cod, and I did it as a journalist. I let them speak their truth, why they do their art, how they do their art, what it's all about. There was no construct from me on top of it. There was no editorializing at all. And while many in the tribe received it with high praise, there were some in the tribe who were furious and trolled me mercilessly, people who didn't even know me, because I am not indigenous, and I never claimed to be indigenous. I'm Jewish. I've shared some of their pain of oppression, which is why I wanted to do the book and why I've been an ally for 40 years. So it was a really difficult position to be put in. And I think some of us here have probably experienced something similar. And I don't know what my question is, but it's just something I wanted to say.
I think it was just a sharing. I'm not sure it was a question.
Share the experience.
So basically, again, it goes back to one of my basic tenets of life, which is that everybody has their own reality and their own truth. And you really can't, it's insanity to think that you're going to change somebody else's reality. So basically, yes, no matter what we do, there are probably going to be people that are going to be disapproving. And I think that what Lynnie is suggesting is that if you really have your heart in this, and if you really believe in what you've done, ignore the naysayers and just look for the open doors. Ellen.
Yeah, on that note, I'm thinking of living or accomplishing versus living. Okay. And so when we have an experience, and we've all had those, seeing a waterfall or seeing a bird in somehow or whatever, there's something that you never forget. That's living. Okay. Now I know we're all here to get our work done. I know that. But there's something that you cannot beat when you have that experience. And I've experienced it in this play where it means more to me than anything else. There was what Lynnie didn't mention is that where she helped me, she not only said this man is Black, she said this man is Black passing for white, because that's who read it. And he was very good. And so now the whole thing got very it really blew my mind. Okay. I'm not only writing about a black culture, I'm writing about a man who is black passing for white. He doesn't know who he is. So he goes down to the South where his roots are. And something happened one day when I was writing where he finds out where his father lives. This is 37 years later. He left when he was 17. And he goes to his father's house. I'm just telling you this because it was mind-blowing. He goes to his father's house and he's waiting on the steps. It's an old Gullah Geechee cottage. And an old man comes up and he says, "They tell me a white man's looking for me." He's talking to his son, but he doesn't recognize him. He sees a white man. Okay. And I thought, where did that come from? That came from way down deep in me, you know? And my husband he writes crime thrillers, and he says that came from the boys in the basement. Okay. You don't know where that to me is okay. If you're not going to do my play, you're not going to do my play. But when I can do something like that, man, I could die happy. Okay. So, that was just amazing. And he says, tell me a white man's looking for me. And the protagonist says, "I'm your son." And so on. So it just that meeting, I saw it, I felt it, I knew it. It was worth everything.
Okay, thanks for the share. I'm going to go to John and Joel in a second, but I just want. Well, I know what. Let's go to John. John, what is your question?
I have to unmute myself. Again, more of a comment than a question. I think as writers, and we're all writers here, um, our job is to tell a good story. And telling a good story means mixing people up in a situation where there's going to be some sort of tension between them. Otherwise, it becomes a very dull story. We cannot, in any realistic sense, stick to only ourselves as characters. I thoroughly research characters. I've got a musical. I love Burt Williams. I just adore the man. So I made him a character in one of my musicals. And to do it authentically enough, I researched everything I could. Half of his lines are direct quotes. So I'm using his own words on stage. In a completely different um, example, I wrote a short play called a two-hander called The Baby Cage, which is set in post-World War II France, where the Allies were trying to deprogram Nazi children. So we have a Nazi 12-year-old and an American soldier trying to deprogram him. A little controversial, I'm sure, but
okay. Well, I wanted to just bring up a couple other points. That's what I was going to say before you started, though, because there are things just that we need to fill in terms of why we're in the situation we are right now in terms of this shadow of cultural appropriations that sort of is cast over so many of us. One of the problems with theater has been the underrepresentation of Black voices. It's not Black stories. Black stories, yes, but Black voices even more so. And still the absolute absence of Native American voices. We have one. We have Larissa. I can't remember her last name. The Thanksgiving play. And Asian voices. We have a predominance of white voices that have sort of dominated theater, commercial theater for years and years and years. We are at a point where it looked like things were going to get a little bit better towards the end of COVID, when the new season started, when we were opening up. There was, I think it was 7 Broadway plays that were written by and had complete production teams that were Black. So the problem is, or the challenge is, maintaining our authentic voices, doing what Lynnie's saying, which is basically, if you are passionate about telling the story, don't worry about the obstacles, look for the opportunities. So there are always going to be people who are going to say, but you're taking those opportunities away from Black writers, you're taking those opportunities away from Asian writers. It's the same thing. My friend Ariel Estrada, who's Asian, and he talks about how frustrated he gets when actors are cast in roles that they're not authentic to, like when straight men play gay men, or when anybody plays Asians that are not Asian. Um, there is enough truth and there's enough genuine feeling about this that we can't just ignore it and say this doesn't have to exist if you don't want it to. It does exist. There are people that are going to feel very deeply about this, and they are going to be obstacles. And you always have to make a genuine choice. You have to decide whether it is worth you're telling the story to take the opportunity away from somebody else who might tell it, and whose part of a culture whose voice is not heard as often. I don't say not to do it. I just say to be conscious of it. There are reasons. There are stories I want to tell, and one of my most successful plays actually was about a middle class white family in suburbs of Philadelphia and their black maid. And I wrote the black maid. And I wrote the black maid well enough to get by, but I now know from the woman that played the part like 20 years ago that she would love to sit down with me and try to make that character more authentic than she felt it was. She played the part and she was great. She was great in it. I couldn't write that particular story, because I was a Jewish kid who was raised in a Jewish household, and we had a black maid. So it was my Carolina change. So I knew the context because I'd lived the context, but I didn't live the character. I lived the context, but not necessarily the character.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot of what we're saying today, if I may highlight it, Lynnie, I'm totally with you when saying, don't worry about the obstacles, just look for the opportunities. And I'm perfectly willing to say that there are good reasons to tell stories that may not be your story. And I don't discourage anybody from doing it. What's happened over the past 10, 15 years that I've seen is that white writers who have written Black stories have always been told, have a Black director or have a Black somebody connected to this, just to give it some credibility. And sometimes just reading the play isn't enough to give it credibility. Sometimes you have to just really give it a context so that people know that your intention is to be authentic. Our intentions are always to be authentic. Nobody sits down at the typewriter to write a play that is completely false and ridiculous. I mean, we all write from someplace within us that we really believe in. So those are just some of the things I wanted to say. I wanted to fill in because I wanted to give a fuller context of what we're talking about here. So Joe, your hand is raised and it looks exhausted by now.
Thank you.
Because I talk so darn much.
Thank you. First of all, I love what Celeste said about the story chooses the writer, not the writer chooses the story. That struck home for me because I only wrote one musical in my life, and it's because it was a story that was given me to tell. But the thing I wanted to bring up was how times have changed, and I'm going to ask you guys to respond to the idea of whether they will change again, and whether this restrictiveness is something that's going to have its wane, its ebb and its wane. Because I want to mention the first reading I ever did of my musical, Ocean and Teacup, which, as I said earlier, takes place it's about an American in India. The first reading I did was was with the TRU Reading Series.
Hey.
And this was back in, I think it was like 2012 or 13, I'm not sure, a while ago. And the man who played my Indian lead, he's a spiritual teacher, was a black man named Quentin Darrington, if anyone's familiar with him.
He was brilliant.
He is one of the greatest singers in the world. And he set a standard, I mean, for that show, for me, for that character. And there's a song that he sings.
Joel, you were going to ask. You started to ask them a question. You went off topic.
No, I'm trying to get to the topic. Meaning, in those days, I thought nothing.
No, you asked a question. Let them answer it. You said, "Do you
did
think
I ask it already?"
Yes, you did. You asked it. You said basically, we're in a world right now. Do you think it's going to change again?
Okay.
And the obvious answer is the world is always going to change. It's a question of when. Celeste, Lynnie, and Ellen, do you have any response to Joel about that?
Yeah, I have an answer. I was talking to my daughter-in-law, who's been a manager of talent actors for quite a few years, and she said 5 years ago you couldn't cast a straight man as a gay man. She said that's changed. So I don't know what your experience with that is, but she manages right now the star of Punch, on Broadway. So she's had a lot of experience, and that's what she said to me.
Well, I think the more interesting thing that's happening is that we have some gay actors who are openly gay who are being cast as straight people, men, like Bridgerton had Jonathan. What's his name? Jonathan. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. The Time magazine. What's his name? No, not Jonathan Groff. No, this is the guy that was declared the Time magazine's sexiest man of the year.
Jonathan Bailey.
Thank you, John Effin Bailey. Yes, of course.
Jay.
Jonathan Bailey. He's done gay characters. He's done straight characters. Matt Bomer has also done some straight characters and done them effectively. So I think that in terms of the gay straight thing, I'm not sure if it's as sensitive as it once was. The problem there is that in the world that we were in before, and probably may still be in, it was a disadvantage for an actor to come out as being gay. It just limited their career. A little better now. It's not over though. It's still happening. Will it change? Maybe. Why not? Next year, probably not. Next decade, maybe. Next century, sure. And in terms of what Joel was asking you, I want you ladies also to answer him.
I just say change for whom? I think as you look in here, everybody's group is different. Change for you isn't the same as change for me. Okay, and I think when people realize that, when they ask these universal questions, I think you have to realize what will affect you may not affect me. Change hasn't happened for someone like me for years. There are no midlife or senior Black foundational Black women that are prominent really in the theater. Not really. They're stereotypical. They're somebody's mama, they're somebody's, I don't want to call them whores. They're fast women. They're accoutrements. That hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. So, but it may change for somebody who's gay, may change for a white man, change for whom? When you just mentioned, and I have to go back to it. You said, well, there were all these 5 Black plays that came in, and that meant change. Change for whom? The quality of the plays weren't great, not all of them.
Well, I think
and they were written by some Black people.
I think,
but sometimes they were chosen because they are mediocre. Mediocrity is a very comfortable place for some people to have for Black people to be. I hold a higher standard. So no, I wasn't impressed with most of them, no. Just because they were Black and they were on Broadway, okay. And that in $2.75, I think, gets you on the train. I don't know how much it is now. I don't take the train. So,
I think it's 3 1/4. I'm not sure.
What I'm saying is change for whom? And you have to be specific about it. When people ask that question, they have to be a little bit more specific. If it's change for you, good.
Well, I
It was
think what
changed for me.
Joel
No.
was asking, Joel was saying that there's tremendous sensitivity right now about non uh, crossing the cultural barrier. But what are the topic
Yeah.
is? There's great sensitivity right now. There has been for a while, and I think he was saying, do you think that will eventually ease up? I said once non-white artists have an equal voice. I don't know when that's going to happen, but once they have an equal voice, it'll change. But in the meantime, we're just taking incremental steps towards something resembling equity, inclusion, and diversion. And diversity, not diversion, diversion. Oh my God.
No, I think that's, I mean, it's a logical conclusion. I mean,
Yeah.
when the voice is there, then, but no, do we have an equal voice? No, we don't.
No.
We have individuals who can, make try and make strides as an ensemble, as an en masse. Black people, no. Individuals, yes. You have certain individuals that are making an impact, and that's a very good thing.
Well, I think we were making progress. I may be very naive, but I thought we were making progress until like 4 years ago. Everything.
It's again, Bob. I say progress for whom?
Honestly, I would say
there's not been. It hasn't changed for
well,
my
I
group.
think we see you white America, the white paper that was addressed to the Broadway commercial community. I thought it had an impact. I thought people listened. I thought people understood that there was something going on. I thought that while we were in shutdown and we were actually forced to actually see George Floyd being murdered, and I think it changed a lot of us. But then what it did was it pushed a lot of other people to the other side. We now have we gave birth to something during COVID called white fragility. Do we know what white fragility is? We gave birth to white fragility. Suddenly, in opposition to the fact that people were trying to be more accepting and more open-minded, they were saying, "Oh no, you're being unfair to me. You're making me uncomfortable by talking about these things." Well, Jesus, I mean, how uncomfortable did we make Black people for like a century of slavery?
No. Let us say it wasn't a century of slavery. It was centuries.
Centuries of slavery.
To be accurate. You see, that's the thing that we're talking about, the inaccuracies. Just in even a statement, it's in the inaccuracies. We are the one race of people, and I have this conversation with Celeste a lot, where we have consistently been enslaved for centuries. No one else has been enslaved like that. And there is still some enslavement. 4 centuries. Thank you, Celeste. And there's still levels of enslavement. So when you talk about progress, when you talk about women's lib, you're not talking about us. I'm just going to be frank. I don't have any time not to be frank. I'm not a young chicken, so I'm going to tell you the truth. It's not about me. White liberation for women is white liberation for women. I make my path. I kick the door open. But you didn't help me kick the door open. I had to kick it up by myself. So, let us be real. There's a certain reality that we all want to dance around. When you're going to dance around, then don't talk to me about it because I don't dance like that. I really don't. I live it every single day. This is not a part-time job for me. Thank God. So for the time that I was 19, I've been doing this. And I've been facing people who tell me, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this. I've been in productions where my leading men who were white won Tonys and I couldn't get a job. And I got better reviews than they did. Yeah.
And I still stick to what I was saying before. I thought that we're making progress, but we've actually gone backwards in the past 3 or 4 years.
Of course. Yeah. But we're not surprised about that. You are surprised about that. Black people have been in this place for a long time. You'll be surprised. Adjust. Welcome to my club.
Happy to be part of it.
But just welcome.
Okay. Are you okay with time? Because we have 3 hands up.
Oh yeah. I knew this wasn't going to be quick.
You all okay? Okay, so Susan, you have your hand up. Let's start with you.
This is a little off the exact topic of people writing in a, a different racial or ethnic, writing characters in different racial or ethnic backgrounds to our own selves. So I have a play and have wondered this. So this is a marketing question. It's a play that can be cast interracially, but also it could have resonance among different racial groups. And I have wondered, I've thought about sending it to the, various communities who have their own theaters within that community to be produced all at the same time, hopefully. I'd love it if that happened, because I think the story has different kinds of resonance for different families, and that's what would be brought out.
Is that a question? Yeah, you started us, you said you were going to ask a question, so I wasn't sure.
Well, the question is, do you think that has, I was about to say validity, but I'm looking for the residents in different communities. And do you think that has validity, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, I think over time it could be picked up by different communities in general, but as something I would do, over the next 6 to 12 months.
I'll just submit a question. Can what a lot of us say is there is universality in the specific. As writers, we very often are told that by being very specific, we can create the universal. So you're actually suggesting something different here. You're saying that your play can adjust from community to community. And my question is, can it adjust and still be specific to each community? So that's a question for you to answer as a writer.
Well, so just to pick up what you said, yes, that's how I see it, that it's a universal story. And that
would you write the script and allow possibilities for people to bring specificity into their character, specificity into the interactions that are happening? Because right now you're saying basically what you're describing is generic. That would be the word. It's generic enough to apply to anybody. And that concerns me. You may actually have done something brilliant. If what you're saying actually would work, it's brilliant. The fact that you could actually come up with a play that is authentic and compelling, and that could be done by like 10 different communities with different backgrounds and different ethnicities. The thing that I like to go back to is I always use this as an example. There's a musical that some of you may have heard of called Fiddler on the Roof. Sheldon Hardick wrote this play about the Jewish experience, and he thought that he had written a very effective piece about the Jewish experience. And when it became a successful show, suddenly it was being taken to Japan, and he said to them, "Why are you taking this to Japan? This is crazy." But they went to Japan and they did Fiddler on the Roof in Japan, and Japanese people were coming up to Sheldon and said, "How do you know so much about our culture?"
Well, Bob, to address what you're saying, I do see it as universal, not generic.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that the word generic, I don't know. I think it just disturbed me a little bit. I think universal
it's a disturbing word.
Applies it a little bit more. I mean, think about it. We do a play in essence called Death of a Salesman. Okay. And before they did it on Broadway, we did it 5 years ago with Black actors. And we didn't change a word. We didn't change anything because it does attend to the human circumstance. Mm-hmm. The human circumstance. And that makes it universal. So I say to you, Susan, does your play attend to the human circumstance? And if it does, then it is universal.
I will say yes. That's certainly what I am set out to do.
Okay. You may have done it. I don't have enough information to know, but you trust your instincts, I guess. I remember also another example is Maya Katigbek. I think everybody knows who she is, the National Asian Art. I forget the name of the company. It's like going crazy here. She came to a TRU meeting and she talked about how she and her company wanted to produce classics using all Asian casts. And I remember her saying, I want to see Chekhov with this face. And that was her take on it. And they've successfully, and many companies have successfully crossed the racial barriers in terms of doing, because there is something basically human in these classic, brilliant plays. And it seemed like it was a deprivation if an Asian cast couldn't do them, or if a Black cast couldn't do them. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it, Susan. If it truly can work.
There are lawsuits that were in existence in out west for people not to cast people of color, no matter how fair they were, in certain plays. The foundations of these plays, the authors have died, but the foundations, the estates won't allow. They won't give the rights. Or if they find out that it's cast like that, they take the rights away.
Wow.
There's a time when Samuel Beckett.
Talk about change.
There's a time when the Beckett Foundation would not have allowed Keanu Reeves to be in Waiting for Godot. But yeah. That's changed too. Things do change. Arlene, you're up next.
Yeah, hi. I want to bring up the topic of white privilege, because there aren't enough, Black actors, directors, from what I'm doing, especially because it resonates with, if I talk to a Black theater owner, or I went to Rosa Rivers, who didn't know me from Adam about 25 years ago. And I said, oh, I have this woman, and she was a big songwriter. And he looks it up and he says, okay, come in, meet me tomorrow and hire a 5-piece band and the place. And you're going to do it at the Schomburg. And it was, I don't get that from the white audiences, but I was retired teacher early. I was like 51 years old and I retired, and that's white privilege because my grandfather came over and had bought a house, and I got his kids old houses because he was, it wasn't because he was prejudiced. He wasn't. He was on ships going down to Africa. He was a carpenter on those ships. And there's pictures together, and you couldn't say anything racist in front of him, and I'm talking back in the 50s. So it's just that when Rosemary McCoy, who former
Arlene, I'm going to beg you to
all right, I'm going to cut it down, but I would like at least a little bit more time to finish. Other people have finished things of there, but this is I think this is an important to know about the white privilege. So there, I get ho hum when I hit a white producer. She was very big. She was bigger than Carole King and she was not allowed to be in certain places, and she struggled, and yet I can't even get her into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and that's a long story, but it's white privilege. People have people promoting them, that there aren't enough people promoting Rose. She was nearly forgotten, and I had to do it because I was retired. I could go interview her every day and talk to her, and I did love her story. She kissed Jackie Wilson. So listen, that was very interesting. So that's about it. We have to acknowledge that it's in everything. It's in home buying. It's how much people have, and and it's in a theater. Okay, bye.
Thanks, Arlene. White privilege, of course, is the other thing that we could have talked about. When I was talking about white fragility stems from white privilege, and it's basically the censorship that certain people in our country are putting on us about talking about things that really matter to us because it makes them uncomfortable. That's the white fragility part of it. Marilyn Anderson and Ludmilla, and then some of us have to go have dinner.
Hi. This sort of follows up on what somebody else was just saying. I guess I wanted to know about inclusive casting more, because like I have a project that has 3 women leads, and originally it was done and was written for 3 women white leads. But I've also thought it's really about sexism and ageism, but it's true because it's about gender parity and stuff in Hollywood. So I wanted to make it like one Latina, one white person, and one Black woman. Do I have to add material or change dialogue to fit the Black women? Because, like the Black women I know out here, we all face the same thing with regard to the difficulty in Hollywood. So I'm just asking because these days it seems like theaters only want things that have, various races, and also they want things written by minorities. So what do you feel about, changing something to inclusive casting? And do we have to write it and specify it, or can people just put in the actors that will make the roles great?
Any thoughts?
Okay. Well, if you've written a script that is genuine to the female experience, then any woman can come in there and do your script. And I would find it offensive if you change the language because I'm coming in there as a Black woman. Because I'm going to make it by mere virtue of my standing on the stage, it is now a Black thing. You don't need to write any dialect. You don't have to give me any accent. You don't have to. I mean, Celeste has a play, Sassy Mamas. And when she did Sassy Mamas, it's been done with Black women. But we thought, well, you know what? I think we could do this with all white women because it's about women. And if it's genuine, don't change it. It's an insult to change it, to be very frank. For me, it's an insult. I don't do dialects. I say if you want me to speak Southern, I speak Southern for you, but you ain't got to write that down. I know how to do that. But tell me what it is that you want, and I'll do it. But don't dictate to me what it is that I have to say. That is the freedom that as actors we love.
We
Thank
have
you.
we have one
Appreciate
more
that. Thank
we have
you.
one more question from the room, and that would be Ludmila. And then I'm going to let everybody have dinner. I promise.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Mila Ilieva, and I adore Bob Ost, wonderful talent. Some of my first work that I got to do was some of his. Yay, team, Bob Ost. What I have to share, I have never heard anybody say anything like what I'm about to share. One morning, I was waiting for a taxi. My manager had called me, Mila, you've got an audition in 40 minutes. They just called, get out there. So I go over to I live in the Hotel Beacon on the Upper West Side, and I was trying to either get a taxi. I went to the subways. The subways weren't running quick enough. So I'm standing there at the corner of 74th and Broadway, and Harry Belafonte comes running out of the office part of the building where that used to be Central Bank. He didn't look up at me. He didn't see me. A taxi came around the corner and he held the taxi. I said, Harry, I've been waiting for a taxi. I've got an audition. He said, get in. I'll take you there. My mother and Harry Belafonte went to George Washington High School and they were best friends. Okay. And Harry, my mother had told me stories. My mother was a brilliant artist. And Harry told me, he said, your mother was a brilliant artist. And he said, we would take classes together and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, I said, well, Harry, my mom thought that you were the best thing since sliced bread. And where I grew up was in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. And for Harry to tell me the stories about my mom and him, I said, yeah, I know about that. The time that y'all went to lunch and blah, 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 blah. And it was just, I loved Harry Belafonte.
Okay.
If I was his age, he and I would have had Bob write a show for us, and then we would have gotten it to Broadway. But that's my story. I just wanted to tell you that it's never, never, never give up. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just curious, Celeste, Ellen, and Lynnie, were there any threads that you'd like to finish off with, and anything that you want to say as a final statement of today's rather far-reaching conversation. It wasn't as specific as I thought it would be.
Well, I would like to say that pursue your art, pursue your dreams, pursue the story that is pursuing you. You know,
Nice.
don't
It's nice.
don't okay, yeah. Don't think about the obstacles. I wrote a play about four women. In my mind, they were white. They were four Louisiana women. In my mind, they were white. So it's kind of like Ellen's story. She thought she had written she didn't know she had written a black guy. In my mind, they were white, four white Louisiana women. When the white cast read it, they were white. When the black, and I didn't give any description. And Lynnie, you were at one of the readings at Beckdale's when the white cast read it, they were white. And maybe that's because they were Louisiana women. So the black women assumed that they were Louisiana Creoles, and the white women assumed that they were Louisiana Cajuns. And that was a lesson for me. So,
Ellen?
Yeah, on a very practical level, because I think that's kind of where it started. I do think that this whole idea of black, there's black and black and black, we're talking about culture, and there's northern and southern and so on and so forth. So the advice that I got, and the woman, this was a black producer at this panel that I attended, she didn't give me a whole long story. She said, you need a guide. And I think that was very helpful, And so Lynnie has been very helpful, and I do have to approach the Gullah Geechee Society in the South and find someone to read my play and tell me where I may be off, and so on and so forth. So that's what I'll say. If you're going to write across culture, you can't just what they're saying is the most important thing. You have to follow your impulse, follow your dream. In a very practical sense, you need to know if you're on the right if you've done anything that needs to be looked at from a very practical point.
I think it's dangerous to assume that you got it right and that you don't need anybody to look at
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
I think it's just a little dangerous. It certainly wouldn't hurt if you've written something that is not from your own experience to get somebody on your team who has had that experience or knows about it more than you do. I think that's the function that you're trying to play, Lynnie, with the writers you're working with, giving them a little bit of guidance, giving them a little bit of sense of, oh, this feels authentic, this doesn't feel authentic.
And I do it for both of them.
Yeah.
A play is a play is a play.
mm-hmm.
Really. You get into the semantics of this, this white play, this black play, this Caribbean play. It's a play is a play is a play. It has foundations. But I just want to say that it's been my pleasure and privilege to work with these women. I think because they are flexible, they are open to thought, their work is not precious to them so that every word can't move, but I treat it as it's precious to me. So if I come to them and say, let's talk about a little something, let's just try something a little bit more, they have the flexibility to deal with that. And if you instill that within yourself, you have your play and you have your writing and the investments, and you've been every character, which I find is absolutely fabulous. That I asked about the voices. How do you become every character in your play? But you write it, so you're every character.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to hand it over to somebody, and you've got to hand it over to somebody you trust, and that's the journey. That really is the journey. And I welcome playwrights in my rehearsals. Some people don't. Some people don't because they have a different interpretation. I like to see if I'm going to where they want to go in a reading, because that's the purpose.
I definitely, as a writer, I definitely prefer it when a director is comfortable having me there. I also am respectful if they don't want me there. But
Yes.
honestly, it feels if it makes the writer feel more part of the process if they can be in the room. Now, word to writers, being in the room doesn't mean that you can just spout anything you want that comes out of your head and tell actors how to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Being
I
in
agree.
the room that you're basically being given a privilege by the director, because the director at that point has the lead on your play. You've written it, now the director has to take control. So yeah, I love working with directors. I love it even more when the director actually likes working with me. So very gratifying, very artistically fulfilling. So I think we're gonna just end. If you guys can stay around, I know everybody in this room is going to still want to hang out and ask you questions, but I'm going to do a little bit of a follow up or an ending for YouTube. So I'm going to thank Ellen Clarkson for being with me today, and I'm going to thank Celeste Walker. Celeste, well, thanking you means I'm taking you all out of the spotlight. But I genuinely do appreciate it. And Lynnie, of course, you're my buddy, so I'm so glad to have had you here. And we'll talk some more in a second. So thank you to everybody who's attended. We had a pretty good turnout today of the community. Thank you, all of you, for showing up every week. God bless you all. Very grateful. And for you out there in YouTube land, if you found this by just randomly, and you've decided that you actually like what we're doing and you find this interesting, I hope you'll feel free to email me, and I will invite you to come to the future the future conversations that we're going to have, including one next week is going to be a publicist who works with the Edinburgh Fringe and a publicist who works with New York not-for-profit theater companies. We're going to talk about getting the word out, how to get noticed is what I call it. And I have things coming up in the future. I've got some people that are active in the Latina cultural community, and they're going to talk about, I have somebody in Chicago and somebody in New York who are going to compare communities. And I just keep coming up with them every week. I love doing this. And so if people email me and invite me to a show and I don't go to the show, I sometimes say, hey, you want to come on my show? So if you have topics that you think are important that you'd like to hear discussed, please just contact me. Oh, I didn't give you my email address. It's trunltd@aol.com. At AOL.com, excuse me. It's TRUNLTD@AOL.com. Shoot me an email. We'll invite you to Zoom. Tell me what you want me to talk about. I'll figure it out. I'll make it happen. We've been doing this as a community service since we started in April 17th, 2020, but who's counting? And it still is a community service. I still want to be here and available to the community, but at the same time, there's another reality, which is that we have bills to pay. We have a lot more bills to pay than we had during shutdown. So if you can support us by buying a ticket to come be with us, that's fine. That would be great, terrific. If you can't afford it, come for free, it's fine. And if you want to give us a donation, don't let me stop you. You can go to TRU donate, trudonate.com, and all donations are welcome. I hope that any of you who are sort of catching this, well, by the time I post this on YouTube, our Sunday event is going to be over. I was going to tell you about True Speak, Hear Our Voices, which is a big special thing we're doing Sunday night, but I will not tell you any more than that, because if you're just finding us now, you're not going to be able to make it to the show. Grateful, very grateful for all the support. I'm really speechless about the fact that one of my YouTube interviews that I did 3 weeks ago has now had 311,000 views on YouTube. So I think there are a lot more people are probably going to find me than I'm used to. So we're here. We'd like to have you part of our community. Please join us, and see you in the weeks to come, I hope. And I guess that's it.